Greetings, here we are with another delightful video. This time I'm going to go over the 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, One D&D, D&D 1.24 or 1. Not 1.24, 5.24 or 5.5 or Wizards of the Coast kind of screwed up the whole naming scheme for this. My personal operating theory is that this was originally intended to be called Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. But Level Up Advanced 5th Edition already took the whole Advanced 5th Edition thing already. So Wizards of the Coast kind of had to invent something like One D&D or something like that. And then people made fun of it because it was like the One Ring kind of situation. This was back during the OGL shit. So, yeah. Just so you know, this MSRP's for $49.99, which is actually rather cheap for the size of the book. Something like this from Paizo will be like $70. Okay. It contains the artwork of the villains from the 1980s Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, in which Ernie Gygax was the lead consultant on. And he was the person that made a lot of character decisions and thematic theme decisions around the Dungeons & Dragons cartoon. Something that Wizards of the Coast probably doesn't want to admit. But anyways, here we go. I do like the red, black, and white color scheme. It reminds me of 1940s Germany. Indeed. Evil as can be. Black inside with sort of like a fake or just off like shadow tone artwork. It's kind of reminds me of like chalk on slate 8 artwork, where you basically just you use white chalk to make the light areas, and wherever you don't use the chalk in, you get your dark areas, and you use light amounts of chalk to create the textures. I think that's generally the vibe they were going with. Overall, the artwork is actually quite nice. This book has over 382 pages. The table of contents are fairly basic, but also not super... it's in that magical range between... it's not super detailed, but it's also not super basic either. It's in that middle zone. They go into, right off the bat, into the things you need to know, the basics of dungeon mastering. I mean, this is like really the super basics. This memo right here says card accessories that reference spell cards. As everyone knows, I do shorts covering the spell cards from the 2014 set. I have yet to see any indication of any spell cards specifically for the 2024 Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. However, I will buy them just because I want to do videos with them and stuff like that, and I use them on occasion. I particularly use monster cards as a game master more. This is the Pathfinder 2nd edition set, because I find that's the easiest way to actually effectively organize combats, is get some cards for monsters and write down all the initiatives on a sheet and go from there. But this is like super basic stuff, like training wheels level information for Dungeon Masters. This book, in contrast with the 2020, not the 2020, but the 2014 version of the Dungeon Master's Guide, the 2014 book had a problem where it immediately went into the intermediate and advanced stuff for Dungeons and Dragons DMs. Where this book, as I can kind of see, veers more strongly towards the ultra basic stuff for Dungeon Masters. So in this strange way, this book is written for game masters or dungeon masters that have like next to no experience whatsoever. And this book is written as if it's written by people who are just learned the ways of dungeon mastering and then worked their craft and then put their knowledge into the book. So they can teach from the experience of being new dungeon masters. Because this is a rather evident thing that crops up periodically. People have already started noticing a few peculiarities in the rules mechanics in this book. Please note that there is this wonderful little sections in this book where they have form fillable sheets for filling out all your important information. This is your game expectation sheet. This is basically the social contract sheet you hand to your players, listing out all the scary things that are going to be in your game, like high ledges and clowns and stuff like that. I'm making joke, but also those are things that are actually terrifying to a lot of people. I personally have a slight fear of heights. Once I get about 4 feet in height, I can naturally want to hold on to something. And once I get up to 8 feet in height, I'm hugging something. So there we go. This is mutual respect, basically safety tools section of the book. They spend way too much time explaining the concept of not being a jerk to your players. And don't spend enough time explaining to players not to be jerk to your dungeon master, which is weird, because without the dungeon master, there is literally no such thing as a game. As I said before, respect for the respect for the DM. It's this little section about this big, and then player die rolls and such and so forth, rule discussions and so forth. So I found the spot where it says respect your dungeon master. Antisocial behaviors like evil characters and rules that aren't physics. The game is not an economy. Combat is for enemies. Rules rely on good faith interpretation. Rules aren't physics. This is the magical statement that says your peasant railgun doesn't freaking work, people, okay? It never really did work in Dungeons and Dragons because there was never intent to put physics into the system itself to a high degree outside of specific spells was having applications to certain things. This is going over running the game, acting, exploring, fighting, investigation. I got a feeling that was just written in order of alphabetical order. Problem solving, socializing, storytelling, group sizes, explaining a few basic things about group sizes. We have a party here who has apparently met up with a coach or a merchant, and the halfling rogue, very stereotypically, is robbing from her. Looks like some gems. Yes, the halfling rogue with purple hair is stealing gems from the fair maiden on her cart with her donkey. So it goes over basically how to deal with absentee players and multiple DMs and joint DM concept and shared worlds and so forth. The basic outlines of very basic concepts of many things. It goes over the basic uses of roped together social situations, research tasks, and more. Difficulty classes, saving throws, advantage, disadvantage, consequences, success at a cost, degrees of failure, and so forth. Throughout the entire book, there is decently nice artwork here and there. However, you will occasionally come across this little thing where the mechanics are just a little on the tight side, such as I'm getting to in a moment. This is talking about, by the way, exploration and the wild environment. This is the travel planner, which is handy dandy as it is. However, it is completely unnecessary to take up an entire page for a travel planner or expectation list. They could have just made it a little cutout window right there. And basically it says, this is an example of a travel planner you can use. Or you can use a rule-lined sheet or a textbook to write out your schedule in this kind of format or that kind of format or so forth. Personally, I never really needed to do a travel planner kind of thing. I just had a quick rundown of things. This talks about distance and weather and all kinds of things and the various effects of you going around in the environment and being ambushed and tracking things and so forth. This is about running in combat for various things and various ways of keeping track of HP and using tracking conditions on characters and stuff like that, and the basic rules of squares and hexes for targeting various enemies around cover and stuff like that, which is pretty good to have on hand. Describes in this section narration of combat, describing the actions, awarding heroic inspiration, keep combat moving, and so forth. And talks about adjusting difficulties for various things and milestones. One of the things I do like about this book is that it generally does make a point of being really basic for really new game masters. However, it is lacking for that intermediate to high level game mastery knowledge and skills. We are now getting to the infamous chase rules, and I'm saying infamous because people have already worked out that the chase rules are such a manner that within 10 minutes of running, it is possible for your character to immediately die from a series of failed Constitution saving throws. As such, a chase participant can take the dash action on a number of times equal to 3 plus their Constitution modifier, minimum of once. Each additional dash action it takes during the chase requires the creature to succeed on a DC 10 Constitution saving throw at the end of its turn or gain 1 exhaustion level. A participant drops out of the chase if its speed hits 0. So some people have already done the math and figured out that within 10 turns, your character can instantly die if you have a series of failures, which will instantly rack up your exhaustion levels, which then will tack on penalties to your saving throws, and it will death spiral your character within a few failures into dying instantly. So there you go. It is a artwork. I do not know what's up with this artwork. This scene actually is kind of weird. The characters, they're clearly chasing were-rats through the streets, and a giant rat. However, the characters' expressions and the manner in which they're looking in the environment does not actually effectively track with how a person would naturally look in the environment. It's as if the characters are looking randomly in different directions. In the back here, you see here, the 3 characters that are chasing the the were-rats, and they look like they're running away from something. Their expressions are more in line with running away from something. The only person that is vaguely in the track of, specifically running after the were-rats is this elf ranger, where everyone else seems to be completely missing the whole process of trying to chase after something and keeping track of it with your eyes as it's trying to run away from you. And that seems to be an occasional quirk. the quality of the artwork is really nice until you look really close at it, and then you start seeing like anomalies in some things. You also see some artwork that gets reused from previous books, from the previous 5th edition and 4th edition and 3.5. So there you go. This is a book on creating creatures. The section on creating creatures, creating magic items, curses and magical contagions, which is handy in itself. Death section, death scenes and so forth advice. A large section on doors and dungeons, random tables. It's always nice to have random tables. Mapping the dungeon advice, environmental effects. My only real thought is that, as I said before numerous times before, this is all like super basic stuff. What they probably could have did is put on here beginners or a beginner's dungeon master guide, to make it more accurate overall in the whole point of the book, because this book is definitely written specifically in the direction of people who are completely new, not so much for people who are highly experienced or moderately experienced. Once you get to like moderate level experience, you pretty much can either homebrew on the fly solutions to a lot of the problems in this book, or you've already learned how to deal with a lot of that stuff already in other ways, or have resources on it. This is the firearms and explosives chapter of weaponry, gods and other powers. Another thing I do like about this book is it's pretty much to the point. This is a section on hazards. Each section... Sassy, don't bump into the camera. She just kind of like jumps under the blanket and then just starts rolling around under it and hits the stand in which the camera's on. But anyways, we have some hazards here for the characters to deal with. Marks of prestige like fortifications, a lot of recommendations, medals, parcels of land, special favors, special rights, titles, training, just really, really basic stuff. Yet again, mob tips, tips on running mobs, average results, examples, and so forth. More a mob result table, which is handy in itself. This is actually something that's more leaning into the intermediate level stuff kind of thing right here. But for the most part, most of the book seems to be revolved around just giving you the basics of each thing and then just going on, just leaving it right there. Non-player characters, common names, like you really need to have a table of random names for characters. Personality traits, NPC tracker sheet. This is handy to have like a list that says, oh, you want to have stat block for the character. You want the alignment, personality, appearance, and a secret of the character, but you don't exactly need an entire page that is a NPC tracker page to copy and print out. There's this like weird pattern where there's a lot of these tracker sheets that you don't necessarily need them in full-size paper. You just need like a list or just enough information to give you good advice on creating such a sheet, and then you go from there. NPC secrets, NPCs as party members, the loyalty mechanic, which is handy. You got older versions of the 1980s cartoon characters. You got a section on poisons, and then renown. As I said, you notice I'm like just turning up. You got renown, and then you got settlements, and then I turn a page, and it becomes claims to fame, calamities, a settlement tracker for the towns. So your basic information for what you need for your town. And then it goes on to your siege equipment, which is always useful to have siege equipment. But yet again, you got a ballista, cannon, flamethrower, coach, keg launcher, lightning cannon, mangonel, Ram, a siege tower, suspended cauldron, trebuchet. Is there stuff on the next page? No. That's basically it. That's kind of the repeating pattern throughout this entire book. It's like literally only 2-3 pages of a thing, and then they're immediately on to the next thing. Supernatural gifts, which are basically like blessings and boons. From the 2014 version, you got a section on traps and making traps, poison needles and such. This is all, as I said, handy stuff for really new game masters, but I do like the fact that it's a good focus on making stuff really good access to new game masters. Yet again, at the same time, it is literally just enough to give new game masters a base framework, and it's kind of just leaves you off right there. And it's not a whole lot more for highly experienced or moderately experienced game masters. Guide on rails and railroads. Yes, please don't do them or try to avoid doing it as much as possible. How to map a dungeon section or town or palace or city. You got bullywugs with wotc in conflict. Plan encounters. And so forth. The math for XP budgeting per character and how to balance around that. You got kobolds in a mine or something, trying to dig something out. Random encounters, bringing it to the end. Adventure rewards, minor difficulties. Adventure examples: the foiled steam, minor difficulties. The winged god. Horns of the Beast, Boreal Ball. Okay, I don't need a ball. So let's see here. What's their adventure examples? You got a level 1 adventure for level 1 characters, adventure for level 2 characters, adventure for level 3 characters, adventure for level 5 characters, and then you have an adventure for level 7 characters. Yet again, it's very much beginner oriented. Creating campaigns. In the original 2014 version of Dungeon Master Guide, the creating campaign, creating worlds, creating multiverses stuff was basically the very front end of the book, which is kind of a weird choice in itself. The previous 2014 version was more of a toolbox for advanced creation of mechanics and stuff like that, where this one is more of a beginner-oriented version. You got a campaign example of a campaign journal page sheet or a tracker. Yet again, something that's not entirely necessary. It just simply should be like a list or something like in a corner, like a box. Like you should have something along this lines and such and so forth. It covers the good point. Maybe a little picture of an example of a sheet. A DM character tracker. Campaign conflicts tracker. Yet again, stuff that doesn't really need an entire page to have a blank piece of paper with a few things listed on it. It could just be stuff like that. D&D settings. I find it fascinating that the very first one is Dark Sun, a setting in which Wizards of the Coast said they'll never do. They probably should remove that. Heroes make their mark on a post-apocalyptic world defiled by magic and forsaken by the gods. And you got Dragonlance, Eberron, Alexandria, which is from Critical Role, Forgotten Realms, Greyhawk, Planescape, Ravenloft, Ravnica, Spelljammer, Strixhaven, and Theros. It goes over campaign start, session 0, and all your essentials of the progress of your adventure. Yet again, some artwork here. That's actually a pretty decent one right there. Then you have a section on Greyhawk. There's been a lot of talk about people denoting that there's been a lot of retcons to various components of Greyhawk over the years. Not even stuff that's controversial or anything like that. Just like switching like genders and names of characters, like rulers of nations and stuff like that, which is odd to do, but okay. Interestingly enough, you got a tiefling in Greyhawk. Greyhawk is more oriented towards classical Europe setting. By the way, this piece of artwork is actually from Dungeons & Dragons 3.5. I have the book somewhere here. I think it's the player's handbook, actually. That's in map of Greyhawk. People have denoted that there's been alterations in removing or changing names of regions, such as removing the names of some Arabic-sounding nations and changing it into something else. I am not an example of Orath. I'm not an expert of Orath or anything of that. I'm quite sure that there's a gentleman on YouTube called the Greyhawk Grognard, who is a very in-depth, highly knowledgeable individual on Greyhawk, who has extensive information. If you want to learn more about Greyhawk, go to him and he will tell you. This goes over all the important regions of Greyhawk and much, much more. I'm just going to fast flip past that. I think I have actually accidentally got into the cosmology section. Oh, there you go. The cosmology section. Supposedly, according to Wizards of the Coast, 5th edition was always spelled Planescape / Spelljammer, which is hard to tell. It was literally like the last minute thing that seemed to got crept in and then got half-assed. But anyways, it basically goes over the basic regions or worlds of Planescape, such as Carceri, Beastlands, Bytopia, and stuff like that. A lot of this information is already present in the Planescape book set or box set, as well as the Spelljammer box set. So a lot of this stuff is just getting duplicated over into this. You have the Radiant Citadel right there, and many other places. And I'm just going to skip past that. And then we go into basically the new chapter on magic items, such as treasure. You have sub-categorization of arcane armaments, implements, and relics, which covers various certain things. Like Arcana is mostly items that be used by wizards and warlocks and maybe sorcerers. Armaments are basically martial-oriented items. Implements are more trade items and tool skill items. Relics are more ancient old items and artworks and stuff like that. You got trade bars. This information was already in the 2014 Dungeon Master's Guide, as well as a few other books. More information in Xanathar's Guide and Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. However, it was reprinted into this book. However, Wizards of the Coast staff stated that this was in fact new stuff in the Dungeon Master's Guide, even though it was already in the Dungeon Master's Guide, and it was reiterated in Xanathar's Guide to Everything and a few other things. Section on gemstone, random tables, art object random tables. It's handy to always have random tables. Basic instructions on magic item categories, such as staves, bows, etc., etc. You got a magic item tracker. This is yet again another one of those situations where it's nice to have something that says, oh, between levels 1 and 4 should be like 6 common, 4 uncommon, 1 rare. It's not necessary at all to have a entire sheet be just little circles. You fill in. This could have been just done in a little list that was stuck on a page, and you could have just filled the rest of the page out with stuff, and you wouldn't have had to need to do this. Not to mention, as a magic item tracker, you have cute little artwork pieces on this page that's going to run up your ink on your printer, which is completely wasteful in itself. So we have this problem where we have this entire page used up by something that should have just been a little notation that explains that your party should have this many items at these different tiers in gameplay, but instead they turned it an entire page and then they stuck artwork on it. So if you print it out to even use it like it is, it's going to use up all your colored ink just on little cute flying sphinx and some leaves. I grew up poor. It doesn't look like I'm poor, but I know when it's not a ideal situation for printing out stuff and wasting ink and paper on something. And that's definitely one of those things. This goes over the various different magic items and different categories of various items and how to make certain things with certain things with various skills. Magic item special features, which is random roll tables for your funness, so you can add special characteristics to your magic items just on random tables. Always appreciated in the case of various things. There could have been more options in there, but yet again, this book seems to be prioritized to have large pages that are specifically containing a lot of artwork and tracker sheets that don't need to be as big as they are. And the compulsory urge to just touch upon everything and run away from it. Little section on sentient items right there. Sentient magic item traits. And that's basically just an entire page. You have a little list of conflicts tied to that, so it's just a little bit over a page. You got your magic items A to Z. Most of these are already present in the 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide. Most of this artwork is reused from that guide. There's an occasional new magic item, such as Baba Yaga's dancing broom, and here and there. However, there is also this weird quirk here and there every so often, where they change the artwork of the magic item. The bag of tricks was just like literally a pouch in the previous one with little fuzzy balls inside it, so you could reach in and pick out the fuzzy ball and throw it. Now it's like a satchel that you put over your shoulder and it has eyes glowing out of it, okay? So that's one of the things. We have a new piece of artwork for the Belt of Giant Strength, particularly the fire one. We had the Stone Giant one. One of the weird quirks of this book is that unlike in the 2014 version where they had all the common, uncommon, rare, and very rare spell magic items in one section, and they took the artifact ones and stuck them in another section right after. In this case, they decide, just shove all the artifact magic items right in with the regular magic items. So you got Black Razor right here, right next to the Berserker Axe and Belt of Giant Strength. There are still the same number of Belts of Giant Strength, by the way. There's no new added ones. You also got the Book of Exalted Deeds, as well as the Book of Vile Darkness right next to everything else. Boots of Elvenkind, Boots of False Tracks, Boots of Levitation, and so forth. As I said before, pretty much all the same kind of artwork. They changed the artwork for the Bracers of Archery. That's just one of those things that happens just occasionally, that they add new artwork for something. They took some artwork from, they took an item or two from like Cast Off Armor and the Cauldron of Rebirth. Cast Off Armor was, I think, in Xanthar's Guide to Everything, and Cauldron of Rebirth was in Tasha's Guide to Cauldron of Everything. Yes. So you got more artwork here. You got Cloak of Billowing, which they basically made something interesting out of it. I did not necessarily imagine it looking like that. A few more items. They made another magic item called the Cube of Summoning, which can, on a 1d6, can summon either aberration, beast, construct, dragon, elemental, or fae. There was already a magic item called an Iron Flask that basically covered that function. We will arrive upon that Iron Flask in very short order. But they just made 2 magic items. One that's a short random list where you pick out a thing, and then so like you get aberration. You guess you have to go find an aberration to throw into it, and then you have you got the energy bow from the cartoon, and then a new item called Inspelled Armor and Inspelled Weapon, which is neat in itself. So I'll eventually come up. They added a new version of a Gem of Brightness artwork, and they moved the Haggai from the Monster Manual into this one, and they changed the Gloves of Thievery artwork to something else new. They added a few more hats in here, and where is that? Horn of Blasting, Ironstone. I actually should be getting... Oh, yes. Iron Flask right here. And you have a D100 table for all the different creatures you can get out of it. So, this one is... Iron Flask is like a superior version of the Cube of Summoning for whatever crazy reason. So, you have officially 2 different magic items that do literally the exact same thing. So, as I said before, you got all the books here. They got the Manual of the Golems, all on a random table, 1d20 table. I think those were individual magic items that were in separate entries in the previous book. They actually show you the different versions of the book. Same artwork as before, as well as a few items here. Nothing really new. They changed the artwork for the Orb of Dragonkind in this book. And continue on from there. As I said before, it's mostly the same magic items with just like a minor tweak here and there. And then they changed the artwork of a few of them, and then they mixed a few from Sathar's Guide to Everything and Tasha's Culture into this book. And then they added a few more on top of that. So, there you go. Stone of Good Luck, which still looks like a cat. And then we have random magic item tables in the back here, which is useful. And then we have the Bastion rules. The Bastion rules are basically this special little place in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition where the players basically get to have built a structure for each one of them, or combined all their structures together to make a little special place that produces resources for them. And according to the rules, as far as I can tell, from what everyone talks about and from what I can tell, the Dungeon Master really doesn't have anything to do with the Bastions, other than ask the players, here's a Bastion turn. What did you do in your Bastion turn? Personally, the Bastions were kind of morphed into this thing that is sort of like a plug-on. How can I define it? It's an interesting concept, but the manner in which they promoted it and the rules stipulate that it's specifically a domain of the players, not the game master, is actually a troublesome problem in itself, because now you have something that gives the players bonuses to stuff that is a mechanical thing sitting off to the side that the game master is not supposed to have any interaction with, and now the game master can't really do anything with it. It just produces stuff for the players, and the players just have a little game between them for themselves with themselves. And I guess the bastions being in the Dungeon Master's Guide means that the Dungeon Master can say, there's no bastions in this campaign, kind of thing. But it leaves out the whole range of possibilities, because some players are going to be like, the bastions are entirely our domain. The Dungeon Master has nothing to do with them, so why are you going to have a creature invade our bastions now? That kind of eliminates the fun of it, having it for the Dungeon Master, and including them in the system, but also creates this extra little thing that produces a thing that can result in a imbalanced in the game as it goes along. So, yeah. A little section on Fall of a Bastion and a Bastion Tracker sheet. This might actually be more useful because it's a little bit more complex, and it might be something that's worth printing out and handing to a player. However, yet again, Wizards of the Coast decided to put artwork on the page, which then results in the whole wasting of ink on pages. So we now have a lore glossary in the back end of this book that basically just tells you the most basic things about important places and characters within D&D lore. All this stuff can easily be found online in vastly deeper and higher quality than what's in this book. I do like the fact that it's in a book because it's a form of it that's not electronic, or you don't need the internet or anything like that to get to it. Say like the power goes out and you want to play D&D and someone needs to look something up about a character, here it is. But this is something like, there should probably be another book or something like that covers, say, like Greyhawk in greater depth than what it was in here, or say the Forgotten Realms, which there is in the plans for Dungeons & Dragons 2024 5th edition. Sometime in late 2025, there's going to be a player's guide and a Dungeon Master's Guide for the Forgotten Realms setting. So hopefully they flush things out there, but that's about it. There's a nice little section on maps. This is handy for situations where you, as a game master, don't have enough time to jot out a quick map, so you can reuse one of these for your adventure. The nice thing about these maps is that they are not overly complex. I have had books, the Game Masters, the Ultimate Game Masters book to such and such, like Dungeons or Minions and Tactics, I've shown on the channel. You can actually go back a few years and you can see those book videos, that they had maps in there for like dungeons or quests and stuff like that, and they were just loaded with detail all over, to the point where you could actually lose track of where the grid is on the map, or even if there was a grid on the map. This is actually fairly reasonable and not overly complex. Someone with ADHD can actually keep track of this. Some of these have this crosshatch or decorated wall structure for rock structures. It's like the walls. That makes it a little more busy and a little more distracting with people with ADHD and other issues. However, it's not super thick and super common. There's some of them which with thin walls and stuff like that. This might actually help with some people, as it makes it clear that those are indeed walls that are solid. So we have a nice variety of maps here. And you have a nice key that just stipulates that it is, in fact, 1 square equals 5, and which direction is north, even though technically on these maps. It doesn't matter which direction is north, as this north symbol, north compass is irrelevant, because you as a dungeon master can decide that it's oriented actually like this, and this is north. So sometimes they add in details that are nice, and sometimes they add in details that are completely useless and might not actually be accurate to how you want to orient it, giving the situation you want to orient it to. So there's a good enough variety here for maps that you can actually use quite a few of these and probably recycle them and update them or modify them a few times for various situations. We also have an index in the back that covers all the important terms in this book, that and the pages in which they occur on. I don't know if it's entirely all the time. And then we have a fold-out map, in which I'm not going to tear out for the Greyhawk, as I don't have any real interest in using the map for Greyhawk for any adventures, because I don't do adventures in Greyhawk. I do mostly my adventures in my own homebrew world, or I use Forgotten Realms or something like that, or Eberron. But I usually do a lot of my homebrew adventures in my own world. So overall, it's not a absolutely terrible book. I'm going to actually break this the score into 3 different categories. There is the beginner DM score, the intermediate skill DM score, and the advanced DM score. The beginner is for beginner DMs, advice for DMs on dealing with certain things, and such and so forth, that's oriented towards them. The intermediate is advice that covers intermediate skills for dungeon masters, and then the advanced advice is the advanced advice score, which means it's advice for the most complex situations for dungeon masters, helping you solve really big, troublesome things in system, and edge cases, and allows you to build more complex systems out of it. In this book, for the beginner DM, I give this roughly like 4 stars. It's actually a pretty decent book when it comes to just like, you're a really brand new dungeon master. You don't really know or understand a whole lot. So here you go. Here's a nice simple book for you. Bam. For the intermediate score, it immediately drops down to 3 stars. There is a nice base foundation of all the basic advice in this book that you can use as an intermediate DM skilled DM to build off of that advice to get where you need to go, but you had to do a whole bunch more work. And then the advanced, you get like 1 star, maybe that. There's nothing in here that really is for an advanced dungeon master. Really what you want is the 2014 Dungeon Master's Guide, or the Dungeon Master's Guide for the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 1st edition or 2nd edition, for advanced Dungeon Master skills. Those books are really good for that stuff. The Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition book and the Dungeons & Dragons 3.5 book are more intermediate to advanced books. This book is straight on pretty much for the beginner DM. So it's not terrible. Mine, the logo on the back is not peeling off yet. But of course, this is Wizards of the Coast, and they have a long history of foils peeling off of their cards and stuff like that. So we'll see from there. It's not a terrible book. There are some really interesting oversights in various game mechanics and designs, but overall it's still decent. It is just really focused heavily on the beginner end DM, and giving the beginner DM like a guiding hand in the process and the basic tools to deal with basic stuff. And then there's just enough expansion and tools like how to make monsters, magic items, and traps and hazards in the book that an intermediate skill DM can launch off of those and expand. But there's nothing really in here for an advanced DM. So if you enjoy this video, please leave a like and subscribe. And I've said to some people I might actually tear this book apart in more or a vicious manner. But then I also am like, it's not that bad. It's not garbage. It is not amazing. It's just a book that is very much for beginner dungeon masters. So if you like this video, like, subscribe, add this to a playlist or something else. And I hope you have a delightful day, a nice night, a wonderful week, and a magnificent month. And see you next time. Ciao.